The silent observation. The ambient hum of ventilation systems filled the observation chamber as Dr. Adrian Chen checked his monitors for the third time that hour. Still no change in vital patterns, he noted in his daily log pad while glancing. At the being on the other side of the transparent barrier, she sat perfectly still in the center of the containment unit, her violet skin catching the clinical white light with an almost pearlescent sheen. Her name, according to their limited translation, efforts, was Aya, though Dr. Chen suspected that was merely the closest approximation their language systems could manage. Aya had arrived at Nexus Point Research Station nearly 3 weeks ago, captured by the Galactic Federation patrol near the Cygnus Rift under suspicion of bioweapon smuggling. But after extensive scans revealed no contraband, Commander Sarah Reyes had transferred custody to the Xenobiology Department. Find out what she is and what she knows, were her only instructions. Dr. Chen pressed his palm against the cool surface of the barrier. "Good morning, Aya," he said, activating the communication system. "Did you sleep well?" Her large eyes blinked slowly as she turned toward him. Those eyes were the most unsettling part of her appearance, not because they were alien, but because they looked so startlingly human despite their unusual amber color. "I did not sleep," she replied, her voice melodic, despite the translator's mechanical overlay. "My species requires rest, cycles only every third rotation." Adrian nodded, making a note. "That's fascinating. Would you mind explaining more about your physiological needs?" "You ask many questions, Dr. Chen," she said, tilting her head slightly. "Yet you answer few of mine." He paused, looking up from his tablet. "That's fair. What would you like to know? Why am I here?" The simplicity of the question caught him off guard. "You were found in restricted space." He began reciting the official line, "The patrol had reason to—" "No," she interrupted softly. "Why am I here in this room with you? Why do you watch me with such curiosity when the others look at me with fear?" Adrian felt heat rise to his cheeks. "I'm a scientist. It's my job to observe." "Is that all?" Her lips curved slightly in what might have been a smile. Before he could answer, the lab door hissed open. Cooper Kai, the station's security chief, strode in his uniform, pristine and his expression hard. "Any progress, Chen?" Adrian straightened unconsciously. "We're establishing communication protocols, building trust." "We don't need trust," Cooper said dismissively. "We need information. Intelligence suggests her kind are developing technology that could neutralize our defensive systems. There's no evidence she's involved in any weapons development." Cooper stepped closer to the barrier, studying Aya with cold eyes. "They all look innocent until they're not." He turned to Adrian. "Commander wants results, not conversations." After Cooper left, Adrian sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I apologize for that." "You need not apologize for him," Aya said, rising with fluid grace to approach the barrier. "Each species has those who fear and those who seek to understand." She placed her palm against the barrier, mirroring his earlier gesture. "Which are you, Dr. Chen?" Adrian hesitated, then placed his hand against hers, the transparent material between them. "I want to understand." "Then ask the right questions," she whispered. That night, Adrian stayed late reviewing the day's recordings. He watched as Aya moved through her containment area with deliberate grace, performing what appeared to be ritual movements, perhaps a form of meditation or exercise. When she suddenly looked directly at the camera, as if seeing him through it, he felt a shiver run down his spine. "What are you?" he murmured to himself. In her chamber, Aya smiled as if hearing his question. She raised a hand toward the camera and whispered something the translation system couldn't catch before the feed unexpectedly flickered and went dark for several seconds. When it returned, she was seated again in her original position. Eyes closed, hands folded in her lap. Adrian leaned back in his chair, a curious warmth spreading through his chest. Something told him he was on the verge of a discovery that would change everything. He thought he knew about the universe and perhaps about himself. Whispers through walls. Morning light filtered through the station's artificial skylight system as Dr. Chen arrived earlier than usual to the observation lab. The security log showed he was the first staff member on this level. He approached the barrier where Aya already stood waiting as if she'd anticipated his arrival. "You returned quickly," she said, her voice carrying that strange melodic quality that the translation system couldn't quite normalize. "I had trouble sleeping," Adrian admitted, setting down his coffee mug. "There's something I wanted to ask you without others present." Aya's expression remained serene. "You wish to know about the camera malfunction?" Adrian felt his pulse quicken. "How did you know that?" "Your species projects thoughts quite loudly, especially when curious." She moved closer to the barrier. "We call it the whisper sense, the ability to feel impressions from thinking minds." "You're telepathic," he breathed, barely containing his excitement. "Not as you understand," Aya clarified. "I cannot read specific thoughts, only emotional resonance, intentions, desires, fears." She paused, studying his reaction. "This disturbs you?" "No," Adrian said quickly. Then more honestly, "Maybe a little, but mostly I'm fascinated." "What else can you do that we don't know about?" A small smile played across her purple lips. "If I told you everything, Dr. Chen, what reason would you have to keep me here?" The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Isabel Marquez, the lab's chief neurologist. "Early start, Adrian," she remarked, eyeing both him and Aya with professional curiosity. "Any breakthroughs?" "Just continuing our dialogue," he replied casually. Aya was explaining aspects of her culture. Isabel approached the barrier, clipboard in hand. "Wonderful, I'd like to run some additional neural scans today if that's acceptable." She addressed this to Aya directly, a courtesy most staff didn't extend. Aya inclined her head. "As long as they are non-invasive, I will comply." Throughout the morning, Adrian observed as Isabel conducted her tests. The neural mapping showed unusual activity in regions analogous to the human limbic system. But with patterns unlike anything in their databases, Aya remained cooperative, answering questions about her homeworld, a planet she called Vaitha. "Our civilization developed around massive crystal formations," she explained as the neural scanner hummed softly. "We learned to harness their energy for communication across vast distances." "Is that how your people travel?" Isabel asked. "Through some form of crystal technology." Aya's expression became guarded. "That information is sacred to my people." After Isabel left for lunch, Adrian approached the barrier again. "You don't trust her." "I trust her intentions," Aya replied. "But I know where the information goes. After her, it passes to Commander Reyes, then to Federation intelligence." Her amber eyes locked with his. "They seek our travel technology, not understanding that it cannot be separated from who we are." "What do you mean?" She hesitated before placing her palm against the barrier. "The crystals don't power vessels, Dr. Chen. They amplify what already exists within us, the ability to fold space through thought." Adrian's mind raced with implications. "That's why they're keeping you here. They think you're the key to understanding the technology." "I am not the key," she said softly. "I am merely a diplomat who was in the wrong place when your ships appeared." She lowered her voice. "But there are those among your leaders who believe all of my kind can be studied, dissected to reveal our secrets." A chill ran through Adrian. "I wouldn't let that happen." Her expression softened. "You care for someone you barely know." "I know enough," he said, surprising himself with his certainty. Later that evening, as Adrian prepared to leave, Cooper entered flanked by 2 security officers. "We're implementing new protocols," he announced. "Subject will undergo enhanced scans starting tomorrow." "Enhanced?" Adrian repeated the word with distaste. "What does that mean exactly?" "Neural probes, tissue sampling, the works." Cooper didn't meet his eyes. "Orders from above." "Those procedures haven't been approved by the Ethics Committee," Adrian protested. "They could cause permanent damage." "This isn't a request, Chen." Cooper's voice hardened. "It's happening with or without your cooperation." After they left, Adrian hurried back to Aya's chamber, his heart pounding. She stood at the barrier watching him with those unnervingly perceptive eyes. "You heard," he said. "Yes." She replied simply. I'll try to stop this file a formal objection. Aya shook her head. It won't matter. The decision was made days ago. How, do you know? I felt it, she said. The anticipation in the commander when she visited last week, the calculations of how much they could learn before permanent damage would occur. Adrian felt sick. What can I do? Aya's expression remained calm, but he saw something flicker in her eyes. There is a way, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But it requires trust. Do you trust me, Dr. Chen? He looked at her. The alien being who had occupied his thoughts for weeks, the prisoner who seemed to see through walls and into souls. Without hesitation, he answered, yes. Then tonight, when the station enters sleep cycle, return here, she said, and I will show you why your people should fear us and why you should not. As Adrian left the lab, he felt a strange sensation like fingers gently brushing against his mind. It wasn't intrusive but comforting, almost protective. He turned back to see Aya watching him, her hand raised slightly in farewell. For the first time, he wondered if the barrier between them was protecting humanity from her or her from humanity. Trust in the shadows. The station's night cycle had begun transforming the normally bustling corridors into silent pathways, illuminated only by emergency lighting. Adrian's access card trembled slightly in his hand as he approached the lab, his mind racing with questions about what he was about to do. This is insane, he whispered to himself, yet he couldn't stop. The thought of what Cooper and his team planned to do to Aya tomorrow morning drove him forward. The lab door slid open with a soft hiss revealing the dimmed interior. The containment chamber was illuminated by a gentle blue light, and Aya stood at its center, her violet skin seeming to absorb and reflect the glow in hypnotic patterns. You came, she said as the door closed. Behind him, I said I would. Adrian approached the barrier, noticing how different she looked in this light, more ethereal, almost luminescent. What's going to happen tomorrow? They will attempt to extract neural patterns from my consciousness, she replied, her voice calm despite the words. The process will likely destroy portions of my memory and cognitive functions. Adrian felt his stomach twist. I won't let that happen. There is little you can do through conventional means. Aya moved closer to the barrier, but there is another way, something I have not shared with any human. She raised her hand, palm outward. Place your hand against mine. Adrian hesitated only briefly before pressing his palm against the barrier matching hers. On the other side, the transparent material felt unusually warm. Close your eyes, she instructed, and open your mind. As Adrian complied, he felt a strange sensation starting at his fingertips, then flowing up his arm like warm water. It wasn't unpleasant, just profoundly unfamiliar. When he opened his eyes, gasping, he found himself still standing in the lab, but the barrier between them had visually disappeared, though he could still feel it beneath his palm. What's happening? He asked, his voice barely audible. I'm showing you what we call the bridge between. Aya explained. A mental connection. My people use this to communicate across distances, to share memories, emotions. Adrian felt a gentle pressure in his mind, not invasive, but present, like someone knocking politely at a door. I don't understand. I'm going to share something with you, she continued. A memory that will help you understand why I was sent to this sector of space. Before he could respond, the lab around them seemed to dissolve. Adrian found himself standing on a crystalline platform, overlooking a vast city, built into what appeared to be the interior of a massive geode. Structures of impossible beauty spiraled toward a central light source while being similar to Aya moved through translucent walkways. This is Vaitha. Her voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. My home. The scene shifted to a circular chamber where several purple-skinned beings sat in a meditative circle. The Council of Resonance, Aya explained. They sensed a disturbance in the bridge between a fracture forming between dimensions. Images flashed rapidly, showing massive crystal formations beginning to crack, strange energy patterns forming in space. The fracture was located near your Federation territory, Aya continued. I was sent as an envoy to warn your people. The vision dissolved, returning Adrian to the lab, his hand still pressed against the barrier. His heart pounded in his chest. You came to warn us. Yes, she confirmed. But your patrol ships interpreted my vessel's approach as hostile, fired upon me before I could transmit the diplomatic protocols. She lowered her hand. The fracture continues to grow, Dr. Chen. If it isn't sealed soon, both our worlds face catastrophic consequences. Why didn't you tell anyone else this? I tried. A shadow of frustration crossed her face. But your military commanders were only interested in our travel technology. They believed my warning was a deception. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. What can I do? Help me reach my ship, she said. It contains equipment that can at least temporarily seal the fracture. You're asking me to help you escape. I'm asking you to help me save both our peoples. Her amber eyes held his. Tomorrow they will begin procedures that will destroy my ability to connect with the crystals. Without that connection, the fracture cannot be sealed. Before Adrian could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The sudden noise made him jump back from the barrier. Security breach in Sector 7 announced the automated system. All personnel report to emergency stations. Adrian's communication device buzzed. It was Cooper. Chen, get to the lab now. Something's happening with the crystal samples we extracted from the alien ship. I'm already here, Adrian replied, watching Aya, whose expression had become intensely focused. What's going on? The crystals are emitting some kind of energy pulse. Cooper sounded panicked. It's interfering with station systems. As if on cue, the lights in the lab flickered, then stabilized. Aya had closed her eyes. Her hands raised slightly. It's the fracture, she said, opening her eyes to meet Adrian's gaze. It's beginning, Adrian. Made a decision. What do you need me to do? Disable the containment field, she instructed. Then take me to Storage Bay 12 where they're keeping the crystals from my ship. How do you know where they are? A small smile touched her lips. I've been connected to them since I arrived, they call to me. Adrian hesitated only a moment before moving to the control panel. His security clearance allowed access to the containment protocols, but overriding them would trigger additional alarms. He glanced at Aya, who watched him with unwavering trust. If I do this, there's no going back, he said, his finger hovering over the final authorization. There was no going back the moment you first spoke to me, she replied. With a deep breath, Adrian entered the command sequence. The barrier between them shimmered, then disappeared. Aya stepped forward tentatively, as if testing whether it was truly gone. When no alarm sounded, she moved closer to Adrian. Thank you, she whispered. Standing face to face with no barrier between them, Adrian was struck by how small she actually was, her head barely reaching his shoulder. Yet her presence filled the room with an energy he couldn't describe. We need to move quickly, he said, leading her toward the service corridor. There's a maintenance shaft that connects to the storage level. As they navigated through the dimly lit passages, Adrian felt Aya's hand slip into his. Her touch sent a strange warmth through his body, a connection deeper than physical contact. If we succeed, she said softly as they paused at a junction, what will you do afterward? Adrian hadn't allowed himself to think that far ahead. I don't know. I'll probably be court-martialed, possibly imprisoned. Aya's fingers tightened around his. There are other possibilities. The way she said it made his heart race with implications he wasn't ready to consider. As they continued through the shadows of the station, Adrian realized he'd crossed a line he never thought. He would, for the first time in his life, he was acting on faith rather than evidence, and somehow it felt right. The choice alarms blared throughout Nexus Point as Adrian and Aya raced through maintenance corridors toward Storage Bay 12. The station shuddered periodically, each tremor growing stronger than the last. We're running out of time, Aya whispered, her hand still firmly clasped in his. The fracture is widening. They reached the storage bay door where Adrian quickly overrode the security lock. Inside, hundreds of containment units filled the space. But Aya moved with certainty toward a sealed case in the center. The crystals inside glowed with increasing intensity, pulsing in rhythm with her approach. "Stand back," she warned, placing her palms against the case. The crystals responded immediately, their light intensifying until Adrian had to shield his eyes. When he looked again, the case had opened and Aya stood holding a formation of crystals that seemed to flow around her hands like liquid light. "With these, I can temporarily seal the fracture, but we need to reach my ship." Q. Tar behind them hissed open, revealing Cooper flanked by security officers. "Step away from her, Chen," he ordered, weapon raised. "You don't understand." Adrian positioned himself between Cooper and Aya. "There's a dimensional fracture forming. She came to warn us." More alien lies. Cooper's expression hardened. "Last chance, move aside." Adrian felt Aya's hand on his shoulder. "Let me show him," she said, stepping forward. The crystals in her hands pulsed brighter. Before Cooper could react, the room around them seemed to waver, revealing for a brief moment the terrifying truth. A massive tear in reality visible through the station walls, growing larger. With each passing second, energy tendrils reached through it, distorting everything they touched. The vision lasted only seconds, but its impact was immediate. Cooper lowered his weapon, face pale. "What was that?" "What I've been trying to tell you," Aya replied. "But now we have very little time." Another violent tremor shook the station, knocking everyone off balance. The station's AI announced evacuation protocols. Cooper made a quick decision. "Hangar Bay 3. Her ship's there." He looked at Adrian. "Go. I'll handle Commander Reyes." As they raced toward the hangar, Adrian felt the weight of his choice fully. For the first time, he was leaving everything behind: his career, his world. But looking at Aya, he knew with absolute certainty he couldn't let her face this alone. Beyond boundaries. Aya's ship hummed to life as she placed the crystals into what appeared to be a navigation console. The vessel, unlike anything Adrian had ever seen, seemed alive, responding to her touch. Her thoughts. "I can seal the fracture," she said, her hands moving across crystal interfaces. "But afterward what?" Adrian asked, watching as the hangar doors began to open, revealing the swirling chaos of the fracture beyond the station. "I must return to Vaitha." Her amber eyes met his, filled with emotion. "The council needs to know what happened." "Here." Adrian felt his heart constrict. "I understand. You could come with me," she said softly. "There is much your people could learn from mine, much you could teach us." Before he could answer, Commander Reyes's voice came through the communication system. "Dr. Chen, the station is breaking apart. We're evacuating, but the fracture is preventing escape pods from launching." Adrian looked at Aya, who nodded, understanding. "We'll seal it, giving you time to evacuate," he responded. As the ship lifted off, Adrian made his decision, standing firm beside Aya as they approached the fracture. Its chaotic energy filled the view screen, tearing at the fabric of space. "I need your help," Aya said, extending her hand. "Your mind connected with mine makes the bridge stronger." Adrian took her hand, feeling the now familiar warmth of their connection spreading through him. Together they focused on the crystals, which responded by emitting a harmonizing frequency that spread outward toward the fracture. The energy was overwhelming. Adrian felt as though his consciousness was being stretched across dimensions. Yet through it all, he felt Aya's presence anchoring him. As the fracture began to close, he realized what his heart had known from the beginning. His place was with her, wherever that might lead. The ship accelerated, passing through the closing tear in reality. Behind them, Nexus Point stabilized enough for evacuation pods to launch safely. Ahead lay the unknown. "There will be consequences," Adrian said, as stars he'd never seen before appeared on the view screen. Aya's hand remained in his, her purple skin contrasting with his own. "Yes," she agreed, "but also possibilities." As their ship accelerated toward Vaitha, the boundary between their worlds, like the barrier that had once separated them, became nothing more than a memory. The universe stretched before them, full of new horizons to explore together. "Are you afraid?" she asked. Sensing his thoughts, Adrian smiled, looking into her amber eyes. Not anymore. Her lips curved into an answering smile as the ship carried them toward their shared future, a future beyond all boundaries.